Good afternoon and welcome to your latest video in the series Maths Revision Outside the Classroom. Today's video, number 9, is area, perimeter and volume. This encompasses levels 4 through to 7 at Key Stage 3 and up to Grade C at GCSE. Right, let's start with the simplest of shapes, the square. The area of a square is simply the length of the side squared, or in other words, the length of the side multiplied by itself, because all the sides of a square are equal. So the area of a square is the length of the side multiplied by itself. The perimeter of the square is the total distance around the outside, which is the length of the side times 4, because there are 4 sides, all of the same length. So it's 4 times the length of the side. Now we'll move on to a rectangle. Here, the length and the width are different. So, the area is simply found by multiplying the length by the width, or length by breadth, if you prefer. And the perimeter is the length times 2 plus the width times 2. So, area, length times width, perimeter, area times 2, perimeter is length times 2 plus width times 2. Now we move on to a parallelogram. Now a parallelogram is like a rectangle that's leaning over. So we find the area in the same way we would the area of a rectangle. But the length measurement, the horizontal measurement, we call the base. And the width measurement, the vertical measurement, we call the height. Now it's important to use the height that's at right angles to the base, rather than the slanty height. So we don't use this height, we use the straight up height that's right angles to the base. So it's the base times the height to obtain the area. The base and height must be at right angles to one another. The perimeter is found simply by adding up the total distance around the shape. So you've got the 2 parallel sides like that to add together, and the 2 slanty parallel sides like that to add together. So it's the total of the 2 horizontal parallels and the total of the 2 slanty parallels. That gets you the perimeter. Now we'll move on to a triangle. Now a triangle is easy to obtain from a parallelogram simply by cutting it in 2 from corner to corner, or likewise with a rectangle or a square. So a triangle is half the area of a parallelogram. A parallelogram, remember, was base times height, so a triangle is base times height divided by 2, or a half base times height. We simply multiply the base measurement by the height that's at right angles and divide by 2. Again, we do not use the slanty measurement. We simply use the base and the height that are at right angles to each other, multiply them and divide by 2. The perimeter of the triangle would simply be the base measurement followed by the 2 other sides. So all 3 sides added together. Now we will move on to a trapezium. Trapezium has 2 parallel sides and 2 slanty sides on either side. So you've got a pair of parallel sides and then the 2 slanty sides. That is actually made up of 2 triangles joined together. So we find the area in the same way as we would the area of a triangle. But because we've got 2 triangles, we need to change the formula very slightly. For a start, we add the 2 parallel sides. They could be both horizontal or they could be both vertical, but we add the 2 parallel sides. Then, just like for a triangle, we multiply by the height. That is the vertical height between the parallel sides, or the distance between the vertical sides. It could be horizontal if the trapezium is on its side, but it must be at right angles to the parallel sides. So again, we ignore the slanty measurements. We use the 2 parallels and the distance between them. So add the parallel sides, multiply by the distance between them, normally called the height, and divide by 2, just like we would for a triangle. The formula is a half times h times a plus b, where a and b are the parallel sides. So simply add the parallel sides, multiply by the height, or the distance between the 2 parallel sides, and divide by 2. That gives us the area. The perimeter is just found by adding up all the 4 sides together. Now let us move on to volume. Now when we know area, it is a very straightforward step to move from there to volume. Because volume just involves the third dimension. The third dimension may be the length, or it might be the height, depending on which way round the shape is. The 3D shape, incidentally, is called a prism. The prism has the same cross-section or same front face throughout its length, so wherever you sliced it, it would look exactly the same. What we do is we work out the area of the cross-section. That might be a trapezium or a triangle or a rectangle, and then we multiply it by the third dimension. For instance, for a rectangle, a rectangular prism, known as a cuboid, it's length times width times height, or the third dimension. So length times width times height gives us the volume of a cuboid. For a triangular prism, we find the area of the cross-section, base times height divided by 2, and then again multiply by the third dimension to get the volume. For a trapezium, we do it in exactly the same way. We take the two parallel sides, add them together, multiply by the distance between them, or the height, halve it, divide by 2, the usual way, and then multiply by the third dimension. So it's a half h, a plus b, times the third dimension. The third dimension, remember, can be lengthways or vertical. Well, I hope you found this video useful, and that you now should go away and practice some questions on area, perimeter, and volume. Until the next time,